So I've been flying drones for over 8 years now, starting with the Mavic 1 in 2017, the Mavic 2 Pro, the Mavic 3 series, and now the long-awaited Mavic 4 Pro. I got myself the Creator Combo, which includes this enormous new controller. And let's just say I really pushed the drone to its limits. Having recently used it on a hike where it started to rain pretty heavy, this thing was flying through fog, rain, got completely wet, but survived everything. And using this thing has been an absolute blast so far. If you want to check that video out, it is linked below. Having used DJI drones for such a long time, it only made sense to finally share what I've learned over the years. So here are all the settings that you should change when getting a new drone. And if you don't have the Mavic 4 Pro, keep watching because this will apply to almost any DJI drone. So not only get you the most cinematic footage, but also just make your life easier in so many ways. All right, so starting this bad boy up, you just extend the arms and it will power on like that. You can see the infinity gimbal turning like crazy. I've actually gone ahead and completely reset the system. So we're back from scratch, and together we're gonna set everything up to what has been for me the best possible way to use this drone. Okay, first thing I'm gonna do is jump into the video mode here. And as you can see, we're on the main camera. 1x, there's a 2.5x and a 6x, which are the different zoom lenses. Starting up with our main camera, I think there's a 24mm. It gives us the highest quality. This thing shoots in up to 6K 30 FPS. So the very first thing is down here. You change the settings from auto to pro. And then you're literally gonna click on all the autos, turn them off so it's not automatic. Same with the white balance. Everything has to be manual. This is the only way that we can keep full control of all the settings. Going through the aperture, you see that DJI has put a star at the very best aperture. This is the sharpest image the drone can give you, which is, I think, a very neat feature. I think aperture 4 is the sharpest on the Mavic 2 and 3. So if you're watching that, setting up your Mavic 3, then you should always be around aperture 4. That is the very sharpest aperture. And before we get more into the settings, get yourself ND filters. I don't have ND filters myself. DJI has not launched them yet. They're on the site, they're sold out. They're not available to get. So I'm very, very much waiting for them. And I've also heard they're working on an electronic ND filter, which attaches to the front, and then you'll be able to change the ND settings here in the app. No need to change any ND filter anymore. Okay, let's start at the resolution here. Since this drone shoots 6K, I want to take advantage of this, but I am personally setting my frame rate to 24 FPS. This is just because I work with international productions, a lot of US-based feature film, television companies that need this frame rate. I suggest you choose whatever you think is best. Let's just keep it simple. 24, which means going back to the shutter, set that to always double your frame rate, so 50 in this case. So I love that you can now adjust the tint. There have been huge issues with the tint on this drone before, Mavic 3, so happy that they implemented this. Down here for color, I suggest you do D-Log. This will get you the most flat image and it gives you the most flexibility when grading. And one huge thing for the Mavic 4 Pro is that they now have D-Log on all cameras. So if we go to the 2.5, this one will also be able to shoot in D-Log. So that's just amazing for the grading workflow. So let's jump back to the 1X, and I am personally leaving video codec at H.265 just because that's enough for me right now. There's an all-eye codec which captures much more data and is much larger when recording. But there's still some known issues when using it on a Mac, so I'm still sticking to H.265 as for now. Down here you can select where you want to record this to. I have an internal SD card, but also there's 500 gigabytes of internal storage. And yeah, so what I do with every drone is literally go one time through all the cameras, set it up with the exact frame rate I need and the correct shutter, and basically just get rid of all the auto modes. But then you shouldn't forget to use the other modes as well. Just go into them one time, for example, photo, because if you're up in the air and want to capture that image, your drone should be ready with all the settings. I'm switching off all the auto modes. Here, format, I would highly suggest you click RAW and then use the 50 megapixel, and then same thing, go through all the other cameras. And this one shoots up to 100 megapixels, which is insane. I cannot wait to shoot a few photos with this thing. But there we go, this is everything I changed about the camera. Now going to the drone's main settings here. Let's start with safety. This all looks good to me. The max altitude could be a little low, so I am personally always adjusting that to like 450, because that also means if you're in the mountains and just flying up the mountains, you can only go 120 meters, which could be a bit limiting. So crank that up a bit, but always be cautious about local laws and just don't fly too high. It is always unnecessary risks. And to be completely honest with you, the most cinematic shots I've gotten over the years, very low to the ground, very narrow to the subject, so you don't even have to fly all that high. Power and battery. Here you can actually set up the drone to power on if you unfold it, like I showed you in the intro, but then you can also fold arm to power off. So I'm checking this one because I think it's kind of a cool feature. Everything else looks good. And let's go to control. Here it gets interesting. So first thing here in the top, I'm changing my units to kilometers because now I get kilometers per hour as a speed, which is so much more useful than meters per second. And now we're getting to the really important things, gain and expo. This might be the most important setting of all the settings, because this section here controls your movement, your tilt, your roll, your smoothness of the roll, all of that, your yaw, your pitch, up and down, everything you do with the drone, with these sticks here, and also left to right. But here's a very hidden feature. If you go to sports mode, there's actually a tiny bit of speed left here. If you push this over 90, it goes up to 97 kilometers per hour. I would adjust that little setting to get the most possible speed. So let's get more into these settings here. On the top, you have cine mode, your normal mode, and your sports mode. These are controlled by the stick down here. Cine is very slow. Sports mode, I just use to get where I want to shoot, and then I mostly use the normal mode. So today we're gonna focus on the normal mode. The first three are very self-explanatory. There's no need to change them. The one down below is very important. So your max angular velocity, which means turning the drone from left to right. The setting is way too fast in my experience. I'll crank it down to around 35. That is not too slow, but we can work much more precisely. Below there's a setting for the smoothness, which is how quickly the drone will stop after that movement. So 5 is very abrupt. I would crank it up to around 40 or 50. That seems about right. Okay, scrolling further down, we get to the expo settings. I'm not gonna go into too much detail on what every setting does, but you can just copy what I did. But higher numbers basically mean your drone moves much quicker when you touch the sticks. Moving on, we have settings for the tilt. This obviously controls your tilt from up to down, and I suggest lower numbers for more control. But I'm setting my tilt speed around 20 and my smoothness around 25. That's basically how long your drone takes to stop. This looks pretty good. And the roll settings are specifically for the Mavic 4 Pro because it has this new insane infinity gimbal, which obviously lets you roll the whole thing, as you can see here. Pretty amazing what this thing can do. We're going to set that to max roll speed 25 and the smoothness also to 25. And the setting below should already be on adaptive but never change to fixed. This basically adapts all those speeds to your other cameras. The tele lenses are so much more cropped in, so obviously you need a bit faster movement to move from A to B. With the adaptive camera motion, that will apply and just work so much better. So leave that on. And going back out, we have a few more cool things we can change, especially button customization. So I'm using the DJI RC2 Pro right now, which has a bunch of buttons, including this 5D button, which has 5 different buttons you can customize. But I suggest these two back here are the most important ones and the ones I use the very most. So on C1, I have recenter, tilt down gimbal. Recenter is very important, especially if you use the roll on the Mavic 4. Let's just say our roll is completely off like that. We just hit the button once and it fixes it back to its original state. If we hit again, the drone looks all the way down. Again, it looks straight up. On C2, I have cruise control. Let's say I have a very specific movement, going down with this stick while looking to the left, while panning down. I then use my finger to hit C2 and the drone will then cruise control in that exact setting for however long I want it to. So that is an amazing feature and probably one of my favorite features. All right, quickly going into the camera settings, you have the option to color display assist. If you turn that off, you'll have a log image. This is what D-Log looks like. But if you turn on color display assist, you will have a colored image, which makes it so much easier to really tell if this scene is lit and exposed correctly. I would also highly suggest you turn on overexposure warning. For example, here in the windows back here, you can see the zebra is kicking in. I just know that that area is overexposed. Grid lines, I'm always turning on these two. As you can see, makes for a very nice framing. If you see this little black box here, view after takeoff, those are the side cameras on the left, on the right, even down facing and up facing. That will also turn on while you fly. They're very low quality cameras, but they give you a live preview of what's next to you, which is such a good feature, especially if you're flying sideways and don't have a clear vision of your path. So I would always keep this somewhere floating around on the screen. And yeah, these have pretty much been my settings for the Mavic 4 Pro, but also for any other drone that I have had over the years. That wraps up this video. These are all the settings I'm changing for every new drone I get, and I suggest you do the same to get the most cinematic shots. Let me know if you want to see any other videos about this drone. I'm definitely looking forward to the electronic ND filter, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it and test it. But until then, subscribe to the channel, watch some of my other videos. I'm actually traveling around the world in my G-Wagon, always shooting drone stuff and creating cool vlogs. So here are 2 videos you should watch, and I see you in the next one. Peace.